My name is Kathryn. I am a world record-holding strongman competitor. I've written a book, I co-own 2 businesses, and I do the bare minimum. I don't believe that anyone in this room has to push ourselves past 110% and into burnout in order to achieve our dreams and goals, because I have not done that. Today, what I'm excited to tell you about is how I became capable of carrying around 240 pounds in each hand, like you see here, simply by showing up for myself little by little, day after day. The first place I learned how to be a great strength athlete was at the bar. Oh, but not that one. There we go. I drank with enthusiasm for 16 years. 2.5 ounces at a time, I would chase the bottom of the bottle, where I was hoping I would be able to find some relief from the sensations and the emotions that were weighing down my life. And for a while, we had a pretty good time. That is me in my wedding dress on a mechanical bull on Bourbon Street. Very dignified, yes? I would wake up in the morning and I would be so excited to meet every day. But then I would put my feet on the ground and be even more excited for the drink that was coming later. I was only showing up to places where alcohol was offered. And after a while, this became problematic. I drank myself out of a career at an architecture, engineering, and construction firm. I drank myself out of my marriage. And suddenly I found myself showing up increasingly to dark, dingy, hopeless places with dark, dingy, hopeless people. And they all looked a lot like me. Like many folks who have addictions, there was a day I decided I didn't want to show up for anything ever again. After a particularly vicious fight with my significant other, I found myself driving into the desert of western Colorado with 3 things in my car: a handle of Jim Beam, a pack of cigarettes, and a loaded 9mm handgun. And I wondered what would happen. As you can see, there was a drive out of the desert that day, directly to the emergency room, where the very kindly attending physician suggested politely but firmly that AA might be a good suggestion for me. And for the first time, I agreed that it was probably time to get sober. So since that day, February 19th, 2018, I haven't had another drink. Thank you. Thank you. During those days of early sobriety, my body felt completely discombobulated, and I struggled to find my footing. So I thought, why don't I return to a place that has always felt like home to me, and that was the gym. I started very, very small. I hired a trainer, 1 hour a day, 3 days a week, just over my lunch break so I could start moving my body a little bit more. And it was really fascinating what happened. At that time, I was also starting to relearn how to be an adult in other ways. How do I pay my bills? How do I show up for my business? And how can I be a great friend and colleague? During this time, I had so much fear. I wondered what would happen if I put all this time and energy and effort into showing up at the gym and I never got any of those gains. And what happened if I put all this time and energy and effort into getting sober and my life didn't improve? So to keep those fears at bay, I focused on doing exactly the bare minimum and adding only 2.5 pounds every time I went to the gym. That's the smallest increment that we have at most gyms. It's very small, and we call it a cookie. So I would only add this much weight every time I went, and after 3 months, we had a really great revelation. This is the first time I ever deadlifted 225 pounds. And I remember the day very clearly because my trainer put the bar in front of me and he said, "Bennett, today you're going to pick this up." And I said, "No, thank you. No, thank you." He put it back there, and after a lot of persuasion and a fair amount of coercion, I agreed, and I reached down, and I remember my hands gripping that bar, and I remember how it was biting into my hands, and I lifted and I pulled and I pulled, and then suddenly I found myself very surprised and holding more weight than I'd ever picked up in my life. And in that moment, a light bulb went on in my head. And I realized that I didn't want to drive back out into that desert. And in order to not drive out into the desert, I needed to take care of my body. And to take care of my body, I had to stay sober. And for me, staying sober means picking up a bunch of heavy shit. I've always been the type of person who really gets stuck in the planning phase of a project. I love checklists and schedules and project plans and ideas, but executing wasn't my strong suit until I got into strongman. Because I realized I didn't have to be perfect in order to make those gains. And surprisingly enough, even as I was building this very TED Talk, I found myself back in that desert, feeling isolated and confused and alone. But my friends and my coaches all reminded me that just like with strongman, we only have to put one foot in front of another. Sometimes quite literally. This is my first strongman event of my entire lifting career. In Baltimore in 2019, I competed in what is called, this is the Husafell stone. It's 140 pounds loaded up in the same way as it is in this picture. It's hot because it's been sitting out in the sun. It's slippery with the competitor's sweat, and it threatens to topple you over because when you reach down, the weight is distributed weird. I carried this for 315 feet over the course of 90 seconds, 1 foot in front of another. But the surprising part about this is that during my training, I never went for extra credit. I only showed up and did exactly what my coach recommended. I picked up the Husafell stone with the weight in it, I walked the prescribed amount, I put it back down, I went home. I did the bare minimum, and I walked myself right into a second place finish. The most remarkable parts about strongman is that it's extremely simple. There are only 3 types of activities that we do. 1, you either pick up a weight and you put it right back down. 2, you pick up a weight and you throw it. Or 3, you pick up a weight and walk around with it. And it turns out I'm pretty good at that. But then, after 18 months of hard training, what happened? COVID. In early 2020, I found myself working out in my backyard with 200 pounds of borrowed weight, and suddenly I felt that fear creeping back in. What if I start drinking again because I can't go to the gym? So I knew I had to do something else for myself, and I decided on a 100-day project. What a 100-day project is spending 15 minutes doing some kind of artistic pursuit every day, taking a photo of it, putting it on Instagram. Everyone says, ah. It's great. I had a tower of makeup in my bedroom, and I said, I'm going to use my makeup as inspiration for my own 100-day project. If I can't go to the gym an hour a day, 3 days a week, I will spend 15 minutes in front of my mirror every morning. And here's what happened. During this time, Zoom meetings were really becoming a thing. And so my colleagues and coworkers, after about 2 weeks, really started getting into this project with me. I showed up dressed as a Disney villain. I showed up with soda pop logos on my face, My Little Pony, their little cutie marks on the side of my face. And it started to become a really fun endeavor. Did I want to wake up every morning and put on my makeup for 15 minutes? No. 100 days is a lot of ideas to come up with. I had to crowdsource. And then, did I also have success every day? No. These are the beautiful ones. The other ones are, don't go back on Instagram that far from me, please, leave it alone. But the fabulous part of this is not only did I start building community and building my skill set so that I could start becoming better at doing my own makeup, but I also started building a community of people around me, which was really exciting and fun. And when I had been drinking, there were so many dark days with no fun at all. And before you start thinking that makeup has no applicability to strongman, may I present... Yes, this is how I show up to every contest, and I'm convinced that my first place finishes are due to the fact that I intimidate everyone. Yes. Now, all of this, as the alcohol was leaving my system, I realized that community and routine were the key components to me staying sober and being successful. I built a community in the gym by showing up day after day. I built a community of colleagues and friends with my makeup project and on Instagram by showing up for them day after day. And along the way, I've had so many amazing opportunities. Since 2018, I have been showing up to the gym for an hour to 3 hours at a time, 3 to 5 days a week, and I accidentally set 2 world records. On the left-hand side, you see the Blockbuster, which is a 5-inch by 5-inch piece of metal. It's equivalent to picking up a 5th grader with your fingertips. Closer to me is the Saxon bar, which is a 3-inch by 4-inch deadlift bar. It is a grip implement from hell. You have to use your entire body to heave it up into place, and then it threatens to slip out of your grasp. The really interesting part about all of this is that I am not a person who trains grip. I am a strongman competitor. But some of my buddies at the gym said, hey, why don't you come along and have a good time? We'll lift some weight. Maybe you've never seen these implements. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I paid $20. I got the t-shirt. And it was great. And I set 2 world records. Similarly, I kind of accidentally came in 2nd place in the nation in my weight class this year at the United States Strongman competition. Thank you. This training season was really challenging for me. My dog passed away. I changed jobs twice. I moved across the country twice. I had family concerns, and I just felt defeated. I couldn't find my footing in the gym. And I said, I qualified to go to this show. I don't think I'm going to, though. I should just wait until I'm mentally and physically a little healthier. And all of my friends said, why don't you just give it a try? Even if you come in last, you still competed on the national stage. And so reluctantly, I boarded a plane on June 25th of this year and landed on a rainy day in Manchester, New Hampshire, into an airport that was full of the strongest and fittest looking people I'd ever seen in my life. It was terrifying. I shared an Uber to the hotel with 4 people who had competed in a combined 25 national contests, and I felt sufficiently intimidated. The next morning, I put on my sneakers, I ate my traditional strongman breakfast of gummy bears and energy drinks, and I departed to the contest floor. After the first event, I pushed a sandbag over my head, and I came back and saw the rankings on my phone, and I suddenly realized that I was in 2nd place. And in that moment, my muscles activated. And I felt that I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna try to do great in this contest. So in the next event, I went out and I deadlifted 460 pounds. Then I went out and I held 210 pounds in each hand for 35 seconds. And then there was a 250-pound Husafel stone in front of me, and I heaved it up, and I did not walk for 315 feet, but I got far enough to get onto the stage. And I accepted this trophy in front of a spectator crowd, just like this one. When I turned to the 1st place winner, all she could say to me was, aren't you glad you showed up? And I just cried. There are people who have stronger grip than I do, who don't come to grip competitions at my gym because they're intimidated by the people who compete. There are stronger people who don't go to the national contest because they think they're going to come in last and they are afraid. There are people who want to get sober, but they will not put their butt into a chair in a program of recovery or in front of a therapist so that the magic can happen for them. The starting point to all of this is simply being in the right location. I used to think that there was a secret folder that would download into your brain that I didn't have to be successful. But it turns out that I learned how to deadlift 460 pounds, 2.5 pounds at a time. I learned how to do my makeup in a certain way for contests, 15 minutes at a time. There is no secret to picking up really heavy weight. You just have to do it a lot. If I had stayed home, I would not be a winner. So what I will do today is I will put on my sneakers, I will drive to the gym, I will chalk up my hands, I will just show up to lift that weight. Thank you.